All right, let's get right into it. This explainer is about so much more than just historical accuracy in movies. We're going deeper, looking at what these war films really tell us about propaganda, about history, and maybe, just maybe, about ourselves.
Oh yeah, you've totally been there, right? You're watching some incredible battle on screen and a little voice in the back of your head just whispers, "Wait a second, did it really go down like that?" That question, that little seed of doubt, that's our starting point for this whole conversation.
So why is it that so many movies based on a true story seem to play so fast and loose with, the actual story? Well, there's a reason for that. Let's pull back the curtain on the Hollywood playbook.
Look, it's never just one thing. It's a whole bunch of things, all mixed together. For starters, we're just wired to love simple stories with clear-cut good guys and bad guys, but real life is messy. Real war can be long and boring, punctuated by moments of chaos. Not exactly a blockbuster formula. Then you have to cram months, even years of history into 2 hours. And let's be real, some values from the past would be pretty shocking to us today. So you mix all that in with some honest mistakes and maybe a dash of modern politics, and what you get is a movie that feels more like a myth than a history lesson.
And this just lays it all out perfectly. You've got this whole spectrum of accuracy. Over on one side, you have something like Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor, which is basically a love story with a bunch of historical errors happening in the background. But then, on the other side, you have Tora, a movie about the exact same event that's famous for being incredibly accurate. It just goes to show you, filmmakers are always making a choice. Are we sticking to the facts, or are we going for the feeling?
But this whole tug-of-war between drama and facts, well, it has much, much darker roots. Before Hollywood was just in the business of selling movie tickets, it was in the business of selling a war.
Seriously. During World War II, the line between entertainment and warfare got incredibly blurry. Both the Allies and the Axis powers completely weaponized their film industries. They were cranking out movies left and right, all designed to fire up the folks at home and paint the enemy as monsters.
And how we think about this stuff has totally changed over time. Right after the war, the thinking was super black and white. Allied films, those were the true stories. Nazi films, pure demonic evil. But then, come the 1960s, historians started looking a little closer and realized, hang on, manipulation is a tool, and everyone was using it. And that brings us to today, where there's a lot of skepticism about whether we can ever really know the truth through images that were designed to control how we think and feel.
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures that initial post-war attitude. Nazi propaganda, with Joseph Goebbels at the helm, was seen as this obvious, monstrous machine. It was crude, it was violent, and it was easy for the victors to point to and say, "See, that's pure evil."
But here's the thing. Allied propaganda could be way more subtle. They used techniques like cueing. This wasn't about shouting at you. It was about whispering. A simple phrase like, "Remember Pearl Harbor," wasn't just a title. It was a trigger. It was designed to tap right into that feeling of anger and desire for revenge that was already sitting deep inside the American public. It's an incredibly powerful and much sneakier form of manipulation.
Okay, so let's fast forward a few decades. You've got all these ideas swirling around. History as a story, film as a weapon, our own desire for a satisfying narrative, and then comes Quentin Tarantino, who grabs all of it and smashes it together into one explosive film, Inglourious Basterds. I mean, the movie tells you exactly what it is right from the opening credits. Once upon a time, this isn't a documentary, folks. It's a fairy tale. There's actually a fancy term for this, historiographic metafiction. All that really means is that it's a story that knows it's a story and is actively messing with our ideas about what history is supposed to look like on screen.
And just in case we didn't get the memo, Tarantino literally puts a movie inside his movie. The climax revolves around the premiere of a Nazi propaganda film called Nation's Pride. So we, the audience, are watching a Nazi audience watch their own action movie. This makes it crystal clear. This movie isn't just about war. It's about the power of movies themselves to shape our reality.
And let's be honest, our first gut reaction to the movie is pretty simple. We cheer. Of course we do. It's this incredibly satisfying revenge fantasy where the oppressed get to deliver some brutal Old Testament-style justice. It's bloody, it's cathartic, and for a lot of people, it feels right.
But then, the critics started to weigh in, and they raised a really tough, really uncomfortable question. In cheering for all this bloodshed, are we really celebrating justice, or are we just enjoying a show that makes its heroes look an awful lot like the villains they're destroying? And that right there is the heart of the debate around this film.
And this is where Tarantino pulls off his masterstroke. He's not just giving us a simple shoot-'em-up. Oh no. He's setting a very clever trap, and we, the audience, walk right into it.
Just look at this. The whole climax is built on this brilliant, stunning parallel. We watch the Nazi audience laughing and roaring with approval as their hero guns down Allied soldiers in their propaganda film. And then, just moments later, Tarantino has us laughing and cheering as his heroes butcher those very Nazis in his film. He's holding up a mirror, forcing us to see ourselves in the faces of the people we're supposed to hate.
You know, there's actually a fancy philosophical name for this trick, the Socratic elenchus. It's a method that doesn't hand you an easy answer. Instead, it forces you to confront the contradictions in your own beliefs, and it leaves you in this state of thoughtful confusion. This, wait, what? Moment. And boom, that's the trap. The question Tarantino is secretly asking is this. You just sat there and condemned the Nazis for taking pleasure in a violent propaganda movie. But didn't you just do the exact same thing? The film makes us complicit in the very same behavior that we find so monstrous in them.
So, where does all this leave us? What are we supposed to take away from this whole cinematic mind game? Let's zoom out and try to connect the dots.
After everything, is it fair to just label this movie bad history? You know, to even ask that question is to kind of miss the whole point. This film was never, ever trying to be a textbook.
No, its real power lies in the tough questions it forces us to grapple with. It's not giving us answers, it's making us think. It makes us wonder about the morality of revenge, about how easily we can be seduced by propaganda, and it makes us question our own role every time we buy a ticket to watch a violent movie. And most of all, it reminds us that history isn't just a list of facts, it's a story, and stories can be told in a million different ways.
And I think that's the big takeaway from all this. Maybe the best historical films aren't the ones that are 100% accurate. Maybe the truly great ones are the films that mess with our expectations, the ones that challenge us and force us to ask better, deeper questions about the past and about ourselves.
So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. The next time you sit down in a dark theater to watch a historical epic, ask yourself, what am I really here for? Do I want the messy, complicated truth? Or do I just want a better story? Something to think about.